Hello, hi all. Welcome to another webinar by Akin Care and XOXO Day around mental health. October 10th was World Mental Health Day, and the topic of the conversation today is how wellness programs can aid mental well-being at workplace. As part of the speaker panel, we have Ms. Taruna Suhasini, Chief People Officer at Zozode. We have Romika Gehlot, Total Rewards at Expedia Group, and we have Swati Patange, Chief Wellness Officer at Zenoti. Welcome all three of you. And while we are waiting for a couple of more attendees to join in, we'll give them a minute or so more. A quick round of introduction from you guys, like what you guys do and how has the lockdown and the impact of COVID affected you from the organization point of view. We can have a quick round of conversation that way. That will set the context for the conversation as well. Starting with you, Tarun.
Great. Hi, everybody. I welcome all. Thank you so much for having me here. It's wonderful again to be connecting with everybody. I have been working with Zozode for a year right now, and the journey so far has been fantastic. I think Corona did what it did to everybody is the same for us as well. But I think what helped us was to stay quite connected as a team. We are in terms of employee size, we are pretty much a concised organization, so it makes it really easy for us to ensure that we are seamlessly connected internally. We do have our own product which helps us to stay connected, and we try to run a lot of activities online to ensure that we are keeping employees engaged. There was a lot of frequent communication that we did, and yeah, people have eventually settled down, but now we are entering a stage where employees are getting restless sitting at home, and now the request is that when are you starting the office back, and we want to be back to office and start experiencing the same life again. But it's important to have caution at this point of time, as against just getting into emotions and moving ahead with it. So yeah, we are taking one step at a time, going really slow, observing the situation to see how it goes, and we'll take it up from there. Yeah.
Great. Thanks, Taruna. Romika, at your end.
Hi everyone, I'm Romika. I manage total rewards for the Asia Pacific region for Expedia Group, and basically been doing rewards for about a little over 10 years now. COVID, well, I guess the silver lining here is that the focus on mental wellness and health has finally, it's grabbed everyone's attention. So yes, that is something that we are focusing on as well for our employees.
Great. Thanks. Swati, at your side.
Hi, hello there. Good evening, everybody, and thanks for providing this platform for one of my favorite topics today. I hope everybody is doing fine here. I am Chief Wellness Officer at Zenoti. It's been a 1.5 year of journey at Zenoti, and it has been really wonderful. Of course, the post-COVID things have changed. In fact, I feel sometimes that maybe it has changed and opened a new dimension for employee engagement to well-being, or that effort towards employee well-being. So I think it was a very good news for our side. A lot of challenges, but very new ideas, fresh ideas came in, which is what I felt. It was a boon in a way or two.
Great. That's looking at the silver lining, right?
Yeah.
We have had previous webinars where we have spoken about well-being programs as a whole, the impact of them, how do you measure utility, utilization, engagement, ROI of all those programs. But today, the conversation is purely around mental well-being and how HR professionals can help impact that aspect of their employees' health. And we'll keep the conversation around the same. We'll begin with, we'll go back to the grassroots around how do we define mental well-being, what all activities do we cover under the gamut of, under the topic of mental health, and then look at how do we implement these employee assistance programs, what all activities do we do, what are the roadblocks around them, and how do we ensure that majority of the employees avail these benefits, utilize them when they need it, and know that these benefits are available. So yeah, Romika, before we started, we were just having the conversation. You mentioned to me that you are actually in the process of implementing such a program at your organization. So I'll take the opportunity to start with you. How has the experience been? What have been the roadblocks, and how are you building that program at your organization right now?
That's a very long question, and there are multiple aspects to it. Yes, of course, like all other organizations, our focus was always on employee well-being, but we are focusing a lot more considering the current scenarios. So I'll just start by telling you in terms of what we are looking at the moment. So until now, we of course have a EAP provider, which I think most organizations do, and the idea is to provide, while of course mental counseling and support, but also financial and other kind of support to employees. But what we saw was, and I have called up a lot of my peers and checked if they see a similar trend, the utilization for most of these EAP services is less than 2%. And what we saw, and correct me if there's anyone who thinks I'm wrong or who have seen a higher, percentage of participation. But the problem statement is that, one, while we are spending money and our intentions are right to, provide as much as support as possible to employees, the utilization was really low, right? And there were different aspects of support that we were providing. There is wellness, there is of course EAP, then there is a separate wellness amount that we provide to employees to basically focus on their physical well-being part of it. A lot of our insurance covers also in the region include EAP service. So we saw that there is one, of course, the utilization is not there, and maybe we are not pulling the whole product together and communicating it in the right way. So from there, what we did, we went back to the drawing board to see, okay, what is it that we are trying to do, and what is it that we want to achieve. So like I said, it's a very long question. I'll tell you where we started. We were discussing before this call that it's a very big aspect of success of any such program would be to have buy-in of the business and the leaders at the organization, right? And to add the business part of it, that how will focusing on well-being and investing money in well-being really help employers. So we wrote a white paper, we spoke about, we created a case for well-being, and there's multiple really interesting reports available on, by multiple research companies. I recollect one from Gallup, which showed numbers in terms of how there's a direct correlation between employee, well-being and business performance matrix like customer loyalty, employee productivity, of course, turnover, and so on. So that was our case of change. That is where we started. And before I move on to what are the aspects that we considered in the program, maybe I would request the rest to chime in terms of the need for a program and how how companies are starting to think about it.
Great. Thanks for that, Romika. Taruna, I'll come to you now. I would ideally classify Zozode as well as a startup compared to Expedia and Zenoti as well, maybe. So from your perspective, how do you go about ensuring that your employees are mentally healthy in a regular day-to-day life?
All right. So this is, mental health and well-being is something which is a very big subject, right? It could be anything as simple as somebody not talking to you properly, leading to a stress, or it could be something really devastating that would have happened in a person's life that could be disturbing. Now, the gamut being so big, or the situations being so big, it is very, very difficult to come up with one program which will talk about everything that can cover and help everybody. So while traditionally also the organizations had insurance to look at it, and some sort of counseling etc. used to happen, and we also know that a lot of the HR professionals get certifications in counseling skills to provide that in-house assistance etc. The need to have a personal counselor, also called a defined EAP program, only came into existence primarily because we needed something which would cover this complete gamut. starting from as simple as that, going up to as complex as, a very difficult situation. Now, how do we manage? It wouldn't be possible if we are not able to get people to talk to us. For me, that's a step one, right? That could be they're talking to us, that could be they're talking to leaders, that could be talking to anybody within the organization, or having a touch time with the employees to figure out firstly what's going on. If you do not have that touch time, putting any of these programs is not going to make any difference, right? Because people will anyways not open up and talk because they do not have the confidence. Now, for example, if I have an issue with my manager, and as a manager, my manager is coming and telling me that I have put in an EAP program for you. Would you be interested? Now tell me, how would I develop a trust to go back and use that program? Because this is the same person I want to complain about. This is the same person I want to talk about. How am I going to go back and have trust that, with whomever I'm speaking, they're not going to come back and share and talk about this thing, whatever I have discussed. So for us, it actually right now also is in a stage where we are trying to create more awareness and harp on the points of this being a confidential service, the counselor being somebody who is from outside. There's no judgmental that opinion somebody is forming about you. Nothing is going to be shared with us. So we're still in the phase, in the organization, we are trying to build that trust in the employees to go back and start exercising this platform. The second thing is, it's also important to find out what's going on through surveys. Let's say if one is that you can get people to talk to you about the personal life, and we know that some of the other people, in some of the other way, will always have some stress which is impacting their performance at work, and keeps showing regularly. Actually, if you look at the data on a monthly basis, or their day-to-day work, or you see the trend, you can make out that something is not right with an individual, as long as you're observant about that fact, right? And you're not letting it go, or wishfully or consciously not looking at that information. The second is, with COVID setting in, it was important for us to gauge them first. So we did run a few surveys internally to figure out how are they feeling, are they anxious, what kind of a feeling are they experiencing, whether it's a social isolation, or it's a fear, it's anxiety, it's a stress, it's a relaxation. Because ultimately, if it was a working situation, people would have said that I'm not able to spend time with my family and hence it's stressful. But now it's become the other way around. I'm spending so much of time at home that it is becoming stressful, right? So you see the dynamics have changed. So for us to actually look at how do we introduce the EAP program, we will also have to understand what is it that they're going through. And this can be different in different stages of an employee's life cycle. So we did surveys, we figured that out, we realized that there is a need, not only because people are spending a lot of time in social isolation, but also with all the unwanted news that I'm hearing. Which could be right, could not be right, but it's just falling on my ears. I have no choice but to listen to those, and whether I like it, I don't like it, I'll end up thinking about it and getting anxious about it, right? So from there, we started our journey to figure out, how do we take it up, and then we went back looking for the counselors, etc., to see if we can get them connected. As a program in this organization, we're still pretty much young on that front, where we are still now trying to have some of these sessions internally, where we are trying the counselors to talk to the employees about why is it important and why it should not be considered taboo, and that's it's okay for them to go back and talk about, etc. and all. So with that, we are also seeing, as Romika correctly said, the adoption still is very less. There's a lot of cultural influence that you're trying to battle against to open up people's mind and tell them it's fine for them to adopt to this program and take it up. We're still in that phase where we are trying to, kind of push this through them and say that doesn't matter. Let's just give it a thought. Let's just think about it. You can talk to us, or we can help you out, etc. And taking it up from there. So it's, for us, it's still pretty much initial stages. You're on mute, Trilok.
Yeah. Before I move to Swati for the next question, we spoke about adoption percentages. We'll pick up that as a topic as well during this conversation down the line. At Ekincare, we do EAP service as well for some of our clients, along with the various other health benefits that we provide. We have seen an average of around 4 to 4.5% as the utilization at the starting time period before the COVID era. And during the COVID, that has actually jumped up to around 6 to 6.3%, which is decently well compared to the other benefits that what we were expecting before. So we'll talk about how we ensured the increase in the utilization across the clients of ours as well. But before going to that, Swati, the question to you, I know the topic is quite close to your heart as well. So while Romika and Taruna mentioned about how they implemented these programs at their organization, some thoughts around you. What all do you consider as aspects of a well-being program amongst employees? Like EAP, what are the various aspects of it do you look at?
Okay, let me start with a simple statement like, at Zenoti, actually, well-being, even before COVID was there, it was a very important topic, or it was a core value, which is why, of course, you can see that there's one person who is completely looking at the wellness part of it. So talking about that now, post-COVID, things have changed. Though we were running a lot of wellness programs I was taking care of 4 pillars of wellness, well-being over there. So before COVID, so physical, mental, social, and environmental well-being. I mean, it's a broad topic to talk about. I would just switch to what I wanted to talk about. Like post-COVID, things have changed completely. So if you think about it, when you talk about mental well-being, what was it different before COVID? Why were people more happy? Why were people more engaging? What happened? What does social isolation do? So when you think in those terms, you will see that most of our therapy was done because of social interactions. Okay, even that chai break or coffee break, which would hardly take 15 minutes of your time. You think about it as a very less commitment from employee, but it is you'll see maximum engagement happening, and most of it, I feel that it works as a therapy. Okay, that is a break from work, that is a break from home, that is a break from everything what you are doing, and that is what is missing right now. It is like a continuous plateau that where we have come right now. Okay, which is why even though it is not shown right now, every individual at whatever age they are in is feeling a kind of void. Okay, when we start thinking about what we have missed out, it is hard to fill up that void, right? So, but the plan should be in the same way. Okay, what did we miss? We missed that 15 minutes of break, right? And that itself was a great deal for on daily basis to keep up with the mental spirit, to keep up with the company values, to stay connected. So how do we get it forward? That was one part. Second part, we have to think also that mental wellness may not be just an independent subject. Okay, everything is related. Your social well-being is related to your mental well-being. Your physical well-being is related to mental well-being. So let's not take it mental well-being as one isolated topic and try to deal with it. And especially in a country like India, where mental well-being is still a taboo subject. Okay, you think of how to approach that mental well-being through all these other pillars, then it becomes easier. Then without knowing also, the employees can organically go towards a better well-being, mental well-being score. I hope I'm clear in what I'm telling you actually. So what I'm saying is the best ecosystem that we can form for EAP would be our own community, right? And the best practice would be through engagement. So finding creative ideas, finding an out-of-box ideas, thinking in those terms. Little bit mentality change has to be there from the HR side, and then you'll see that the engagement level increases. And I have seen it personally at Zenoti too. Things that the engagement, which was like hardly for 2%, 3%, slowly it has become to 50% also in many activities, and that is what we want. Like quarterly, we need to emphasize in certain things wherein we do not overburden employees for in certain things, but unknowingly they are doing certain things. Okay, and which is affecting their mental well-being, and that is how you sneak in that mental well-being inside them. So we can talk about it in detail in your further questions, but I just wanted to point this point
Got
out.
it. Got it. Perfect. Thanks, Swati. Romika, coming back to you, you mentioned that engagement was the previous question was a little bit larger, so cutting it short to a smaller the area of the question around specifically the engagement bit. You mentioned it was around 2 to 3%, and you went back to the board to understand about how you can improve it. So what were some of your key learnings when you're working in that space?
More than key learnings, let me take a step back to talk through what are the key factors that we thought through to set up the EAP, and then maybe I can talk about the learnings.
Perfect.
So, like Taruna said, of course, employee privacy is like was the primary factor for us.
Mm-hmm.
So the EAP vendor, which is the employee assistance program vendor that we picked, that was a major criteria to shortlist. So at no point do we ask employees to give in their name, employee ID, or any such aspect to give them the assurance that, if you're talking through a counselor, through the EAP provider, it has nothing to do with us. We can't trace it back. Like if I want to go for a counseling session, I can say my name is Mickey Mouse and avail the facility as well. So that is one assurance that we want to give employees, that we are not linked to the EAP provider. So that was priority. And we are also trying to implement this program of how it was, I think, initially what the name says, like employee assistance program. It's not just linked to counseling sessions. It's broader than that. Of course, there's a physical aspect of it, physical well-being aspect of it as well, but there's also the what we are calling the practical aspect. So the vendor we are signing up for, we are also providing a service to our employees where if I need to look for a nanny, or I need to plan my wedding, that is the kind of support, like a concierge support, that employees can get as well. Because whatever said and done at this point, a lot of stress that a lot of us might be facing could be due to these domestic or other factors not linked to work at all.
Right.
So the program that we are trying to launch would be employee assistance program, of which mental health and well-being would be a part of. On the question that you asked in terms of participation, right? A point that we noticed was that, one, how do we get employees to who require support to reach out for counseling? So of course we are planning our communications in a certain way. It's very different from what I hear Swati and Taruna also talk about. So we are not pushing out content and programs as much, because we at one point tried sending out articles and a lot of emails and content to employee, but the uptake was not very high. So the feedback was a lot of people were actually not reading it. So what we are instead trying to focus on is that basically have all that information available, right, through the EAP vendor itself, and guide employees there, that okay, if you need anything, you can go and search, and this is the information that you have, instead of sending out specific content to these to employees, right? And the other thing which we believe is a key factor on why the uptake for the counseling bit specifically was not very high is now what we are looking at, and we are still in the process of assessing the EAP vendor, but what we are looking at, as an employee, when I call up a EAP vendor, typically what happens, there's someone at a customer service desk who takes the call. It's a customer service executive who tries to understand what your issue is and then directs the call accordingly. And we believe that is a gap in the accessibility, right? Because if I am going through a serious mental condition, I would want someone who can guide me through that instantly. So what we are trying to do, we are looking at a service provider, we are trying to figure out how we can work through it. But the first point of contact for an employee who's seeking counseling or any support to be a clinician of a certain, of course, with a certain master's degree and all. So so that person, when an employee reaches out, can assess the seriousness of the situation or exactly what the employee requires and guide that person accordingly.
Great.
So that is, we believe that that could really increase the utilization as well. So to sum it up, of course, we are looking at a broader program. We are looking at the first touch to be someone who is a clinician or a professional mental health provider. And again, not pushing out so much content because, like I think Swati was saying, the needs of employees are so vast and what everyone is dealing with could be drastically different. So one, like, unless we do really targeted communication, right, one particular mail or stress due to work or stress due to having children at home at this point might not be relevant to everyone. So that is why we are trying to that EAP portal that we have, we'll have it with some good content and just guide employees there.
Great, great. Very interesting point you mentioned about the first point of contact. An interesting statistic from EkinCare is around 35 to 37% of EAP users are being sent through a doctor consultation. So these folks actually reach out to a doctor on EkinCare app. An employee can chat with a doctor 24/7, a general physician, MBBS qualified general physician. And that doctor realizes that this person needs a psychologist consult or a psychiatric consult, and then informs them about the EAP program. This is a very interesting metric.
Yes.
Right? These folks don't even know that they actually need a psychologist consult or they need such kind of a service, and they're reaching out to a doctor. And that is actually helping us improve the utilization at our end as well.
That will, I'll just add on one more point to what I said, and you reminded me of it. Accessibility, what you're talking about, is a very, very important point that we are considering. At this point, the service that we have, the only option is to call the customer service employee, picks up and then guides you to a, whatever support, financial support, mental well-being support that you need. What we are looking at, that an employee, like a chat-based service that you said. So the person you're chatting with would also be a clinician, will give you, will be able to assess on what your need is and guide you accordingly. So, and on that app itself, you'll have content around well-being, physical wellness, and all that, so that everything would be, you don't have to remember a number that, okay, if I need counseling, this is the number that I basically need to call on.
Perfect. Great. Very interesting insights. Any points to add there, Taruna, from your experience?
Right. So, I think you have given me at this topic at a very important juncture where I think I would like to have a different perspective to it completely. Now, let's look at India as a society. All right. So traditionally, we are known to be family people. We have families around, we have elders around to help us sail through situations. And we all used to have so-called Gyan sessions that used to happen throughout our upbringing, etc. and so on. And we had a very high age till the time we used to stay dependent on our parents or the family back home for all the support that we needed. Vis-a-vis in the West, people used to get independent much faster. For example, I remember in my childhood, taking up a part-time job was not an encouraged activity down here, but then you would see, kids in an early age on the Western side would get down to do some kind of a job to sustain them and get that kind of an experience. So traditionally, talking about India as a society, we are not people who can stay alone. Or we have not been the people to face situations alone. Same has been the case with West also, but there, this concept of reaching out and seeking help has been much vastly accepted as compared to India, because we never felt the need of it. And then we also had the taboo, why you have to go and talk out to people about your personal matters when you have people back home to help you out with it, right? Now, add on to nuclear families setting in with, so much of movement of people, so much of cross-cultural movement happening within different places because of work or whatever, studies, etc., other reasons. Certain level of loneliness actually started setting in at that point of time, right? To add on to it, we had social networking coming in. People were more into a pseudo atmosphere, not realizing that they are still in a loneliness kind of a situation where they actually do not have a physical person to talk to. And that was still there. Pre-COVID also that was there. We had all different kind of social media platforms, etc., where people were getting engaged, but not realizing that if I put up a photo and I do not get the like on it, it adds to my stress. Or if I add a photo and somebody says something nasty, it adds to my stress. The only way I was dealing with it is by maybe commenting on somebody else, or maybe just trying to figure out my own way. Still, I'm struggling with it, but I do not want to go to a counselor or somebody else externally to take that help, right? So, and hence, I think what is making difference, as you said, that when a doctor prescribes it, it comes as a shocking surprise that till now nobody has told me this. But the fact is that we always needed it. Nobody actually told us in the families or back home or as a part of my education system that it is completely all right for you to go and talk to somebody. While we had this concept where we said, why don't you write a journal? Or why don't you talk to a stranger? Or why don't you figure out something else? These are the means where you can cut down on your stress and figure out a way of expressing yourself. So it was there, but it was presented in a creative manner where people did not realize that it's something to do with counseling. But the moment you still mention a name of a counselor, people will say, what's wrong with my mental health, right? Not realizing that why you have to wait for a doctor to tell you that. As a healthy practice, we are social beings. We still need somebody to talk to, and somebody who is not judging us, somebody who is not going to go back and tell somebody close to me saying, hey, this is what he or she said, or this is what he or she is suffering from, or this is the stress he or she has, right? We still want people to listen to us. We are trying to find that kind of a help and support on social media platforms because we feel that that's more fancy, maybe that's more colorful, the way it is presented. I have a faster adaptability to it. But we are not realizing that it's not long term. We are still waiting for doctors to tell us that you need to go to a psychologist or a counselor to or somebody to talk to. I think maybe if we revamp this entire approach of, and you will see some of the organizations, they don't even call that talking to a counselor, or they call it a buddy system, just to get away from those kind of terminologies which can psych up people furthermore or stress them about it. They try to change this and try to put it in a creative way, so that it is being accepted well, adopted well, and people are able to actually utilize it to the fullest. So I think when you mentioned about doctors intervening and talking about it, it's actually flashed to me that it's always been there.
Right.
It's just that we're not realizing it. We are realizing because now COVID kind of pushed us in a situation, but we were always isolated. We always needed, the moment you step out of your house, or the moment you become an independent person, starting to think on your own, having your own opinion, be ready that you will need somebody to talk to. Right. So I think that's what needs to set into people, that it's perfectly fine for you to have somebody to talk to, and you can have different opinions, but there is somebody who's going to listen to you non-judgmental and understand, okay, this is what your viewpoint is, and not contradict you by saying it doesn't go with our values, doesn't go with the family, or don't talk about this in the office, etc., etc. Right.
Right.
So I think I just wanted to add that piece of information there.
Great, great. You brought up a very interesting point. A background story to that is the previous webinar that we were having. One of the panelists mentioned about a real life case at her organization where there was a manager who was rating his subordinate regularly at a lower percentage compared to the other colleagues that were there. And but the person was doing everything that was expected from him. When the HR reached out to that manager to understand what was the reason or the thought process behind it, the manager cited some family issues that the employee was facing. And quote unquote, the statement was, the person is not able to manage his or her family side itself. How can I expect him to do better work at office, or whatever he or she is doing at office is not up to the 100% of what the person should be doing. Swati, I'll put you on the spot here. How do you manage such unconscious biases that come in among the manager level of an organization? We spoke about employees reaching out to support when they want to, but how do you train the next level of managers to identify such issues and clear out such biases amongst themselves?
Thanks, Trilok. Actually, Taruna, when you're talking about the buddy system, I thought, this is the time when I should also talk. Anyway, I really agree with this buddy system. First, let me talk a little bit on that, and then I'll come to you, because it will work parallelly with it.
Yeah.
So I feel that, as I said before, that the best ecosystem is our community. Now, how a community within the organization, right? So how do you make a community which will internally help? And again, I'm not talking about when the help is needed. I'm not talking about that when we need a professional help. I'm talking about the intervention part. I'm talking about the prevention part of it. Okay, there we need the community, and as in India, especially in India, we have this community feeling, be it family, be it friends. They are our therapist in very nice way, very basic ways, right? And that kind of support really is what we also can create in organization by simple things like creating a buddy system or having wellness ambassadors inside the organization, leaders setting up an example, leaders coming forward to being those ambassadors, team leaders being ambassadors, the smaller leaders being ambassadors, creating organizational heroes, local heroes over there. When you make a society in which there is always a help, someone to reach out to, someone is there to inspire you. There is a certain level of comfort, and you can always reach out to that. And when you know that the leadership is also understanding the point, and you are getting the leadership also to play a part in your own wellness program, then the game completely changes. So the leadership itself is a game changer. And I'm not talking about just one leader, just having to train the entire leadership team. Okay, having skip level leaders also to get trained. When you when HR just sees that there is some drop in pulse, or somewhere some red flags are there, the HR can reach out to a leader or a skip leader. That's the way the entire ecosystem will be formed, so that any employee feels that, okay, I do not have to just go and talk to my leader. I have like 3-4 other ambassadors over here who inspire me, who I can reach out to. They're easily accessible. For that matter, even for women, if you think about it, women have a different set of problems. Okay, so when you think about a complete community, you have to think about what different sect of people might have issues with, right? So if you have a community, a small, what do you say, a council, a women's council or something in the organization, then you know that I have a family-centric issue, or I have a woman-centric issue, and I know that I do not have to talk to my manager. I can talk to anybody in that council. If you have a certain sect like that, then it works better. It is like this is how I feel that community also builds up, and it works also well. And I'm just not saying, I'm saying out of experience. It really helps to give these small aids and create your local heroes, create your local ambassadors, and keep them reachable. And what happens is the leadership also gets motivated, and leadership is also alert, and they also become a part of your wellness program.
Right. And I think I would like to add to what Swati just said. So what happens is when one of the reasons why some people may not be comfortable talking to an external is because I do not know that person, and they will not have a history. They'll not be able to relate to it. Another best way, or one of the other activities that can become a part of the EAP program, is to have the employee self-help groups. Just like what Swati was pointing out about a community being formed. Let's assume that if we have these kind of self-help groups which is formed within the organization, where the employees can come together, you of course can train people to be more good listeners, or somebody who can provide a non-directive counseling, and they can moderate these kind of sessions. But having these kind of self-help groups where that people are going to be just coming and discussing and talking about it is something which can also have a high amount of acceptance. Because ultimately what you're trying to do is you're trying to solve an issue out there, or a concern, or a state, or an objective. You're trying to meet an objective of making people available for each other as a part of their need and requirement, as against just only terming it as counseling, or getting some external person to only provide counseling when something seriously goes wrong, right? The second important thing is that if we all look at it from a very, very neutral standpoint, a very difficult thing to do, but very, very important thing to do. For example, I will have my own journey as a professional or as an individual, as a part of my growing up, and I will have my different set of experiences which made me who I am today, and this will be very different from the other person, right? One of the reasons why some of these self-help groups or the managers may not be able to do justice to this kind of a role would be because I start comparing them with me. The effect that, what's wrong with this person? If I can deal with it, why he or she cannot deal with it? In a way, getting judgmental about it, right? Or why does this person need to keep talking about this over and over again? Why can't you just deal with it? I dealt with it. I am able to go through it. So I think one of the important things is for us to let go of these kind of stereotype notions of, if it has worked for me, it'll work for somebody else. On the contrary, I think it is important for us to introspect and see that, has it really worked for you? If it would have really worked for you, you would not have sulked about it till date and think about it and say that, this worked for me and I had to go through this mess, etc., right? So which means you have not gone past that event. Actually, you're still stuck somewhere in that and you're still concerned and bothered about things. That means you too need counseling on that, right? So I think a little bit more awareness of people to introspect and see that how can you deal with your own stress and how you can form those self-help groups where everybody can get benefited just by forming those small communities. And I think if this becomes another creative way of just promoting the idea and increasing the higher rate of, or getting a higher rate of adoption, I think we should definitely be open to look at that as one other means of doing it.
Okay. Got it. Perfect. There is a question from Rahul Agarwal, who's asking, will work from home be beneficial for the people thinking about long term from the mental health aspect?
All right. So, Rahul, there is no set rule to why it can and it cannot work. Remember, what is important is that how focused and concentrated you are in your efforts and how clear you are in terms of how are you going to divide your timelines and all, right? Now, remember that you are, every human being, looking at your personal and professional commitments and the time you spend in a particular day is as good as you taking a mechanical machinery and using that machinery for 24/7, right? So if you do not give that rest to that machinery and consistently keep using it without, for that matter, your laptops, if you don't shut it down, you will not have updates, you will not have that time taking, the time for it to take some rest, or the battery will drain out, or you will overheat the battery, right? So these are nothing but burnout. So if you ask me, is there a standard way to look at whether the long-term how working from home will work or no? It may or it may not. And it will depend a lot on an individual as well and how well you're able to balance between your personal and professional priorities. It will also matter how much you want to get involved into the, let's assume if the world starts moving completely at a separate pace. Will you get anxious sitting at home that I'm missing out all the buzz in the office? Will you miss being a part of an important meeting because the telephone connection was bad? Will you feel that maybe I missed on an update or an information because I was at home? Or if everybody is working from home, then I think it'll work fine. Or let's say if this time puts us in a habit, maybe none of us would like to go. So right now in India, unlocking is already happening, right? But not many of us are intending of going to office. We are still comfortably placed. Organizations are trying to keep all of us safe by taking one step at a time. But proactively, how many employees are actually coming and saying that, I would like to go to office? I don't think many of us are doing that, right? Why? Because somewhere in the back of the mind, we are getting used to it. So remember that getting used to a situation is not necessarily everything is mentally fine with you or you're not stressed about it. It's just that you're getting adopted to it. But in that adoption, in this journey that you're taking, if you're feeling uncomfortable in any way, or there is certain level of thought which keeps sticking in your head and keeps you awake throughout the night or is disturbing your sleep patterns, these are the signs that you need to watch out for and then reach out for the assistance, right? So whether we can or we cannot work from home on a longer period is something which is subject to multiple different aspects. But what you need to watch out from today's topic standpoint is whether there is something that's keeping you awake throughout the night. Is a certain level of anxiety that you feel disconnected? Is that causing you any kind of a mental or a physical discomfort? Yes, then you have to definitely go out talking about it and seek some help. I hope that answers your question, Ram.
Got it. Great. He says, thanks for the advice. Much appreciated. There are two a little heavy questions that have come in from the different channel. So the first one is, mental health seems like a first world problem when my employees have physical health conditions to manage. How do I prioritize these? Um, Romika, can I put it to you first to begin this one?
I have a very strong view about this. So I believe that any mental issue could be as serious as a physical condition as well, and we should, as employers, give attention equally to both. So Taruna and Swati were just talking about how important it is as to to have leadership buy-in and to have managers understand. So I think that is what we need to talk about. Like, I think the latest number was about over 20% of the world population suffers from depression.
Yeah.
And this is it's a clinical issue, right? It's not that just someone is sad because something happened, right? It's a clinical issue, and as an employer, it would affect my employees' productivity as well. So I would say, like, we should give enough weightage to both. And why not? It's not that providing EAP support is very expensive. It would be a fraction of the cost that you are spending on your, on your medical health insurance. So yeah.
Great. Any points to add, Taruna or Swati, from your end?
Right. So now I'll talk about a little different subject just for the understanding. So anytime when I talk to my employees about performance management, I tell my managers and the employees not to only focus on goals, but also look at your interpersonal skills.
Mm-hmm.
And my reason is very simple. We are working as a team. None of us are working in isolation. So if I do not have good interpersonal skills, it is going to impact my performance because I'm dependent on certain aspects for other people to finish and come back to me, right? Mm-hmm. It which further can impact or have a upstream, downstream impact on my performance eventually. Same ways, if you are a top performer, you cannot have extremely bad interpersonal skills because you are again in a web, in a matrix. We work in a matrix atmosphere, right? Now, that is what is the situation with the physical health and the mental health. Now, if you have a stress which is bothering you consistently, that could be a stress about not getting promoted, not getting my hike, or what's going to happen now I'm put in PIP. Tell me, will it not impact your performance, or your physical health? Will you have this energy every day morning to get up and start performing to the best of your capability? You won't, right? Similarly, if you have a very active mind, everything is settled, you're peaceful, good communication, transparent information, encouragement, motivation, everything there mentally in your mind. Tell me, will you not feel like getting up and changing the world in the morning? So to me, there is this is completely required for having a holistic person. You cannot have somebody who is mentally dead and doing wonders in your performance or physical health, and who is doing absolutely nothing in physical health and having fantastic mental health. You cannot do that because the energies will not let you stay like that. Right? That's the whole thing, right? Your energy is translating into work, your energy is translating into your communication. That is what is making you move. That is what is making you go around and do things. So can you prioritize and say that, I'm absolutely fine with mental health, and doesn't matter if I'm physically suffering from some ailment? No, it won't work, right? So to me, it's a holistic package. To me, if I have to prioritize, I'm going to say, take care of your overall health. The very first thing. If you start taking care of your mental health, physical health will follow by default. If you're taking care of your physical health, mental health will follow by default. So to me, it's not different. It's one holistic approach that has to be taken.
Perfect. Well said. Swati, anything to add there?
No, I think Taruna has completely said what I had in mind. I always think in the same lines, like they all go hand by hand. You cannot just ignore one part of it and then expect that you will flourish in the other part. And it has to go hand by hand. And if you take care of the well-being, other things you can manage pretty well, If your well-being is not good, so the other parts also get affected. So why not invest time? I mean, organization should invest time, and everybody should invest time in the well-being part of it.
Great. We are getting into the last 10 minutes of the conversation as well, but we have a very, as I was saying before, we have a little loaded question which by Dr. Shweta Shirole, which is in lines with the other question as well, which I was talking before. It says, with such meager participation we get in these programs, how do we justify the ROI to the client or the management? Yeah, this is in line with the other question which said that how do I convince my management about setting budgets for these programs when my organization is cutting costs due to the pandemic? Yeah, I'll leave it open to any one of you to pick up these questions. I am on the other side of the table for this conversation.
Okay, so I'll start, and I'm sure Romika and Swati can add into there. So ROI has to, most of the time, it's an overrated question when it comes to some of the intangible things, right? I by saying this, I typically sound like a typical HR person who is not talking about numbers, but that's not the fact. Now, if I do not have wellness activities, now I'm going to increase the scope of wellness activities a little beyond the subject under discussion, right? Having good performance management system, having a fantastic R&R, having good internal growth opportunities for an employee, trying to have fun activities from time to time, having fun Fridays, birthday celebrations, etc. What are we doing? Is it not a form of creating them or creating a happy and an engaged workforce to ensure that the knowledge is retained in the organization? People look at my brand saying that, oh, this company has a higher retention rate. My attrition is lowest in the industry. I get good awards for having great place for people to work here, and multiple different accreditations getting added to my brand. Now, when are these not the ROIs basis which I can pitch for new business? I can create a brand name. I can attract good talent. I can diversify my portfolio. I can show the potential of what else I can do. I will not have to put in extra amount of effort in getting people to stay in the organization, or I will not have to spend on insurance and sickness and illnesses. My claim ratio will not go beyond 100%. I will not have not many heart attacks. Sadly, I will not have any demises in my office. I will not have people fainting on the floor. And that getting captured and that becoming a part of employees writing anonymous emails to the client saying we are being, in a in a slaughterhouse, we are not treated well. What will that do? So I would like to actually put that question to us. How will you measure ROI or the impact on your returns of these kind of situations? Insurance is just a life jacket, right? I may or I may not use it. Why do I invest in it? Do I see an ROI? To get an ROI, do I need to fall ill and claim that so that, oh, finally I have whatever insurance I was paying, I finally got returns of it because it covered my heart attack or my so-and-so illness, right? It doesn't. What it is doing is it is giving me that shield and cover to not reach the situation where it can impact everything in my life. Same is the case with the programs like this. It is extremely tough.
Yeah.
And I think Romila and Swati will agree with me. It's extremely tough for you to get a management buy-in into it because I do not see the impact of one employee or two employees suffering in thousands of them. What I do not realize is what it does to my brand image, what it does to my prospective candidate or the talent that would be intending to come in the organization, what it does to my inclusion activities in the organization, what is it doing to my culture in the organization. These are the things which I cannot show in numbers, but these are the things that can be felt by an employee, will reflect in my work, will reflect in what I do as a business and how I grow. Now, if that would not have been the case, do you really think the giants of the industry and the organizations would have invested in the, in these initiatives? I have been working for almost 19 years now. When I had started my journey, one of my first employers had this program running endlessly like an insurance program, and they still have it. So even before me, that organization was existing for ages. It's been 19 years I have been seeing them. They still have that. How many, what would have been the coverage? Not more, but they're still keeping it for what? For the brand value, for getting the right talent, for getting the people who can get you good ROI, right? So we have to look a little beyond the immediate returns of having a long-term impact of these kind of initiatives that it can bring to the organization as a whole. Some of it could be tangible, converted into numbers. Some of it is something that you will have to sense, you will have to feel as a part of your surveys, your NPS scores, and also see how people are reacting to it.
Right.
That's my response. I hope that answers the question.
Anything to add here from
Yeah,
Romika?
I totally agree. Taruna. It's not possible for us to show data in that way, but you can take a different direction, like show the pulse rate and those numbers, show the attrition rate. It can be reduced because what were the reasons for attrition? All those things, if you can show, you'll see that just having these what do you say facilities, and it not only increases brand value for your next the new what do you say the joiners, but also it keeps the people, the employees with the company. So you might have to take that approach rather than showing some tangible value, which is not possible at all.
Okay, perfect. We are almost at the top of the hour, but we have one last question for Romika from Sumit, who's asking, how do you think insurance benefits have responded to emerging mental health risk? How does India rank when compared to other APAC countries and mental health insurance benefits offered there?
So let me pick up the first part of the question first. So in terms of how insurance benefits have responded, and it's interesting because this reminded me earlier last year there was an interesting session that Prudent Insurance Brokers had organized, where we had a lot of industry leaders. This was significantly like months before COVID, and at that point we were discussing the same thing about mental health and well-being. So I think it's not only about COVID, and our insurance providers and brokers have all realized the importance of that this will be a significant risk going forward. The good part is in India, I understand from the IRDA guidelines, psychiatric support is now something that insurance providers are required to provide, right? I'm sure there'll be a time when hopefully we'll get a few psychology and counseling services included as well. So I think to sum it up, I think we all understand the risk of for employees, for the impact on productivity that it could have on business. When I say how India would rank versus other APAC countries, we are definitely not there, but considering the products that are coming out, the conversations that are happening, I'm sure we'll get there very soon. The bigger issue that I see is in the thought process, and where we all need to come together and just teach our business leaders and guide them on how, like there was a question that how do we how do we sell the ROI to our business. There are a lot of interesting articles and studies that prove that there is an extremely significant impact. So I think that that knowledge sharing and that hand holding is something that we need to be doing as a human resources professional as well.
Perfect, great. Thanks, Romika, for that. So just summing up the conversation, if you guys can give one advice to an HR professional who is enabling EAP and mental health for their employees, what would be that? Let's just go around the table, starting with you, Taruna.
So I think if somebody is trying to put in an EAP program for their employees, I think my suggestion would first be to genuinely understand what is it that you need to do. So it will be extremely important to first understand and listen to your employees. Look at the situation in your society around to see what is the requirement, what could be impacting. Understand not only this piece right now, but also look at the overall, the age of the organization. What are the different type of situations as an organization they have gone through. A little bit of background in terms of what kind of employees you're hiring, from where are they coming, what has been their journey, etc., etc. So I think it's extremely important to know these factors first. For having a full-fledged EAP program, it may not be necessary if you genuinely don't feel the need of it. You can look at having internal channels first to begin with and test the waters to figure out whether it is going to make an impact for you to invest into something like that. you must remember your end objective. The end objective is to provide a well-being experience to the employee. Could be with the help of a full-fledged EAP program, or could be something that you develop in-house. Do not just follow the bandwagon of just because everybody is having, let's also go ahead and do that. But try and figure out whether you necessarily need it or you can deal internally with whatever it is. You may also look at having visiting counselors. You may also look at sensitizing people about it in the very first go. First, creating a buy-in not only from the management but from the employees will also take time for them to understand that, okay, yes, these are the things I can talk to you somebody about is also important, or these are the things that unknowingly or unconsciously have been impacting me. Let's me talk about it. Are the things that I need to first understand. I need to be more aware that, boss, you need help, buddy, you need somebody to listen to you. So all of us do not have that inherently coming to us, right? So understanding your people, probably do a survey to figure out where are they standing, what are they doing, etc. How aged is your organization? What has been the feedback as a part of your HR Connect? What are the people talking about? Start understanding those situations, and then see whether you want to have counseling sessions, or you want to just look in by starting yoga and meditation first, or you just want to have those self-help groups, or you train your managers to do that. Figure that out internally, and then take one step at a time. Do not boil the ocean completely. Just take one step at a time to figure out what is your immediate basic requirement, and then move on from there. So understand people, figure out different means, what works for you, customize your own program, then launch it, and then you have to ensure that you sustain it, whether you see any ROI or no. But try creative ways of sustaining it for a certain time, because people will take time to open and start exercising it.
Perfect. Romika, from your side?
I'll follow the theme and comment on the whole clinical and mental health angle more than the well-being. I saw a lot of questions on the return on investment. So my tip would be just go out and explore the products that are available. It's surprisingly not as expensive as we would think counseling would be. So yes, that's it from me. Thank you.
Great. Swati, final words?
Yeah, so I'll also go in the same theme. So understand your employee base, what is the age group. Everybody has, how diverse is your organization. Everybody has their own way of communication, think how you communicate mental well-being. What is the best way to communicate mental well-being to this kind of age group? What mental well-being will mean to this kind of age group? Simple questions like that. Just think more, spend more time broadly, think in a more humane approach than anything else. Think more creative, out of the box approach, a diverse approach, which will be tailor-made for your organization. Spend more time on that planning, spend more time on marketing, take help of leaders, take help of, create those local heroes that I always feel worked well with me. Think of it of how you can engage maximum number of crowd in which they have to give minimum commitment. If you think in these lines, I think it works well. And anyways, any culture to seep in takes time, so you should be a little patient. But also, gamification is one of the best things I have seen. Gamification works really well. Everybody understands it, and everybody has fun. And also, in a very organic way, they, fall into this. I wouldn't say trap, but yeah, they fall into this. They will relate to it. So that is one of the things that I have seen worked really well with my organization. So gamification, yeah.
Great. Thank you. Thank you, all three of you. You covered most of the points. One last thing that I would like to add is let us not wait for the next World Mental Health Day to come up to pick up this conversation again. Whether it is EAP, mental well-being, or any employee well-being program, it's an all year round regular touch point, regular activity that continues to happen. It is not a one-off event or activity that is going to help us solve the end result of happy and healthy employees. So Thank you, all three of you. We are actually 8 minutes beyond the time, but thank you so much. I believe it was a very interesting conversation, and I hope we answered the questions from the audience as well. Please feel free to drop in any questions that you might have to the email address from which you received the invite, and we'll reach out to you, get back to your answers, either from the panelists or from our end as well. Once again, thank you, Romika, thank you, Taruna, and thank you, Swati, for being part of the panel. And it was a great conversation with you guys.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thanks.
Pleasure.
Thanks for the time. Bye.
Bye. Bye, everybody. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Have a great
Thank you.
evening.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.